Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Konstantin, and today I'd like to present a paper that is joint work with Wong and Aristidou and Tony Wong, which is titled "Does Generative AI Revolutionize Higher Education? Explorative Study and Policies and Curricular Reforms in Top Asian Universities." This is submission number 8502. And so this paper is really motivated by the current advances in generative artificial intelligence, and it raises important questions about the necessary capacities and curricular reforms needed in our universities. So in this paper, we're exploring how and to what extent top Asian universities have integrated generative artificial intelligence into their policies, and we assess their preparedness based on their current curricula. So our aim is really to stimulate dialogue and contribute to the ongoing discourse surrounding Gen AI's impact on higher education. And so let me give you a little bit of an outline of what I want to talk about. First, I want to give a broad kind of motivation for the piece and a research question, and then highlight the impact of generative AI on the future of work and what that means in the context of higher education. Then I'm going to be talking a little bit about new capacities and skills needed for workers or students in an area that is AI-driven, and then highlight a little bit of our research design and findings before concluding with a discussion and implications of our work. As we know, generative artificial intelligence is really a groundbreaking technology that's poised to impact various aspects of our lives, including higher education. And so as Gen AI continues to advance, it raises important questions about the necessary capacities and curricular reforms needed in our universities to prepare our students. And so the readiness of educational institutions to embrace generative AI is a critical issue that demands our attention. The top Asian universities in particular play a significant role in global higher education, and often serve as a benchmark for educational standards within the region, but also globally. And so in this study, our primary aim is to investigate how well Asian universities have integrated Gen AI into their policies and assess the preparedness of the current curricula. And by examining the extent to which these institutions have developed policies and changed curricula, we really hope to gain insight into the current state of higher education in the face of this transformative change. And we really hope to stimulate dialogue and contribute to the discourse on Gen AI in higher education. And so let me give you a couple of broad strokes on how Gen AI is kind of changing the work that we're doing and what it means and what skills might be needed in the future for workers to succeed in the labor market. And so when it comes to Gen AI in the future of work, it's probably important to understand that this technology is more likely to augment human capabilities rather than replace humans entirely for jobs. And so while AI, particularly Gen AI, has the potential to automate many tasks, it will primarily transform specific tasks within jobs rather than eliminating entire jobs. And so as a result, workers will need to focus on specific tasks that require uniquely human strength, such as emotional intelligence, critical thinking, creativity, and complex problem solving. However, at the same time, there's an increase for technical skills related to AI and data analysis. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. And so to remain competitive in this landscape, workers will need to embrace that lifelong learning process, continually updating their skills and knowledge to ensure that they remain valuable to their organizations. And so what we see from previous studies, for example, by Lee in 2018, really it's like jobs that fall within in the quadrant that they call the danger zone, which is optimization-based asocial, which are likely to be routine tasks that are more susceptible to automation, might be at risk of replacement. However, on the other side, we see less of a danger to automation or replacement by AI. And so really that danger zone emphasizes optimization, the absence of social skills. And maybe these are some skills that we should be paying particular attention to. Right, moving on to the effects of Gen AI in higher education, really there are a couple of levels to this. One of them is teaching, another one is impact on research and resource management, another one is the challenges of integrating Gen AI in education, and also what it means to nurture skill and ethical considerations. So let me start with teaching. I think one of the most promising one of the most promising routes for Gen AI is really the augmentation of teaching and human augmentation rather than replacement. And so what we see are one of the most exciting applications in our eyes is the potential to create personalized learning experiences. And so, for example, we see Gen AI-powered tools like Carnegie's Learning's Mika software, which can tailor study materials and quizzes to each individual's needs and pace. And so this approach can significantly improve learning outcomes and engage students much, much more. And then on the research side, Gen AI has been proven incredibly brilliant in accelerating scientific discovery and hypothesis generation. And so, for example, within STEM, we've seen Google DeepMind's AlphaFold, who's been able to predict protein structures and advance scientific discovery here incredibly for a problem that the researchers have been struggling for ages. But even in the social sciences, hypothesis generation has been tested and has been successful, for example, by the work coming out of the University of Chicago. On a qualitative note, for example, analysis of large text-based corpora is now possible. What we're seeing, for example, at the literary lab at Stanford is the use of Gen AI to study large corpora, shedding new light on literacy history and theory, highlighting cultural trends, linguistic patterns, and social dynamics that might have gone otherwise unnoticed. But then when it comes to Gen AI more on the resource management, we also see huge benefits or potential benefits. So, for example, by predicting student enrollment numbers, optimizing course schedules, managing library resources, monitoring energy use, Gen AI can help universities operate more efficiently and sustainably. However, obviously, there are challenges in integrating AI or Gen AI in higher educations. And one of the primary concerns is really around ethical implications in this highly sensitive context of education. Issues around privacy, biases, and transparency must be carefully considered. And so, for instance, the use of student data to personalize learning experiences might raise questions about data privacy and security. And what we've seen as well in research is that algorithms may inadvertently perpetuate biases present in the data that they're trained on, leading to unequal treatment of students. Another key challenge is the need for infrastructure upgrades to support the successful implementation of Gen AI, which means that universities must even more invest in secure data storage systems, high-speed networks, or robust computing resources to fully leverage their potential, which requires significant financial investments and technical expertise. And another angle and challenges might be integrating Gen AI across disciplines, which is also quite complex, right? And so while we see clear applications in the STEM fields, the potential in the humanities, social sciences is still being explored. And so there's still strategies to be developed to incorporate Gen AI in a diverse curriculum and prepare students across all disciplines for an AI-driven future. And really, to harness the benefits of Gen AI on the student side while mitigating risks, it's important to nurture human skills, uniquely human skills, and prioritize ethical considerations. And so higher education, from our point of view, must focus on developing students' critical thinking, creativity, and emotional intelligence, skills that are really essential for navigating complex AI-driven environments. And so this really leads us to what capacities are needed for students in an AI era when they're ultimately going to go in the job market and want to be successful in their labor market outcomes. And so obviously there's an element of technical skills for students in the AI area. There's some basic proficiency in coding and programming languages, data analysis skills, including data extraction, cleaning, and interpretation, but also a basic understanding of ML principles, algorithms, and their practical applications. But more broadly, and going beyond these highly technical skills, there's some sort of need for computational thinking, which includes abstractions, so removing unnecessary details and extracting relevant information, decomposing tasks, decomposition, breaking down data and problems into smaller parts, then pattern recognition, observing patterns and trends in data, but also algorithmic thinking. Okay, what's the next step here that I need to take in order to solve this complex problem? And really, this is as a backdrop, knowing that AI or Gen AI is going to change what work in the future might look like with a partial replacement, partial automation of jobs, particularly that are optimization based and asocial, and seeing that there's a need for more uniquely human skills, computational thinking, but also technical skills. There's really a need for adaptation of university curricula and teaching methods. And the question here is really about integration of AI into curriculum across disciplines, offering potentially new courses on AI, ML, data science that are human-centric, incorporating AI-related context into existing courses, but also developing strategies that foster soft skills and emotional intelligence while encouraging discussions on the ethics of AI. And so that's a real challenge for universities. And just to provide a little bit of background to this again, the top skills that the World Economic Forum sees from 2023 and the top skills on rise are exactly these, right? So analytical thinking, creative thinking, having technology literacy, but also being resilient and flexible. And AI and big data then being one of them as well. And so taking this a little bit as a backdrop, our research in this paper is really trying to answer the question to what extent that top Asian universities embracing Gen AI, and have they adapted their curriculums to this changing technology that seems to be changing how we do work and what skills we value. And so to that end, we conducted a qualitative study focused largely drawing from policy document. We selected a sample of Asian universities ranked in the top 100 either by Times Higher Education or the QS World University Rankings. And we've chosen these universities because they have the capacity to implement Gen AI strategies and reforms, and they often serve as a benchmark for the entire region. And because Asia is a major hub for technological developments and innovation, it makes a particularly relevant context for this study. Our data is largely consistent of publicly available policy documents at the university levels, and these documents include strategic plans, curricular guides, and other official statements related to AI and Gen AI at the university level. We analyze these documents using qualitative content analysis, and this method kind of involves systematically reviewing and coding the content of the documents to identify key themes, patterns, trends related to Gen AI adoption and integration, which within the curricula. And so let me provide you a little bit of an overview of the Asian universities within our sample and whether or not they have overarching Gen AI policies. And what we see from the top Asian universities within the top 100, which are 25, we only really see 11 that have generative AI policies and 14 that do not, which is quite interesting, especially if we break it down by country, where we see that across the 7 universities within China that are ranked within the top Asian universities, none of them have adopted Gen AI policies, whereas universities in Hong Kong have, and then we see a little bit more of a distribution across South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan. And so to provide a little bit of an overview of the early findings and the current state of Gen AI policies in top Asian universities, we see that really only 11 out of at least 25 top universities have explicit Gen AI policies. And this suggests while some institutions are proactively addressing these challenges and opportunities of Gen AI, others might be lagging behind. And notably, we find that there's no explicit Gen AI policies in the Chinese universities included in that sample, raising the question of why it might be the case and to what extent they might be having an influence on the abilities of students to succeed in the job markets further down the line. And so among the universities that did have Gen AI policies, we then identified several common themes. And these policies often covered issues such as access rights, so who is allowed to use Gen AI and in what context, and more, but they often address concerns around academic honesty, providing guidance on the appropriate use of Gen AI in coursework or research. But many policies also define the roles and responsibilities of students and teachers in using AI, and this included expectations on how Gen AI should be used to support learning and teaching rather than replacing human instruction. And so, however, despite the presence of these policies, we find a notable absence of full curricular reforms, which I'm going to highlight a little bit later. related to Gen AI. And so while some policies have integrated Gen AI or actively encourage integration of Gen AI into teaching and learning, there's little evidence of comparative efforts to redesign curricula around the capabilities and implications of this technology. So let me dive a little bit deeper into the different themes that we've kind of discovered when reviewing these policy documents. And so, as mentioned earlier, one of them is really around access rights. So we found a lot of policies that kind of detail who has the right to access and use Gen AI. And so while some universities allow only faculty members to use Gen AI, some students enrolled in specific programs are also allowed to use it, ensuring that these tools can are used responsibly. And so one quote potentially highlights this quite nicely from the Hong Kong Polytech University, is saying that they have an open and forward-looking stance on the use of Gen AI as a positive and creative force in education. So while embracing the use of new technology in education, there's a principle: students must adhere to high standards of academic integrity in all forms, and that the student code of conduct and the policy and academic integrity apply to the use of Gen AI in students' work as well. And so here you really see, okay, it is for students, but also that there's high value and potential in teaching and learning. Another theme that another set of themes that we discover were within the policies, there seems to be a significance that universities want to highlight the impact of Gen AI on the future of work in the workforce, and some of them stress the need for awareness campaigns, educational programs to inform students and staff about the transformative potential of Gen AI. And so for that, really, it can influence the future of the job and future of the work, where some are outlining the types of jobs that could be affecting by and the skills that students would need to acquire to stay competitive. So, for example, the City University of Hong Kong, within one of their policy documents, lists that by leveraging advanced technology, we can create a dynamic learning environment that equips students with the skills required to thrive in a digital era. And so they really want to foster creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving abilities in preparation for future success. And CityU is committed to nurturing digitally competent and technology responsible generation, thus augmenting our contributions to society. And that theme of ethics and student accountability, but also academic honesty, is something that we found to be quite salient within these policies. So loads of them stress the ethical aspects of using Gen AI, and that it's often on the student's responsibility to use them in a responsible manner. And that academic honesty remains one of the key dominant factors to consider. And so loads of policies include guidelines on plagiarism and the misuse of Gen AI generated content, emphasizing that students should use this technology as a tool for learning, but not as a means to bypass academic work. So, for example, here, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology says, we do remind users to use these tools responsibly with a clear understanding of their capabilities and limitations, and with a commitment to ethical usage practices. And so three more themes perhaps that are quite interesting is that policies are often kind of highlighting who's responsible for determining when and how Gen AI should be used. There's some sort of decision-making outsourcing happening here. And that could range from individual teachers making decisions for their classes to university-wide commitments, setting guidelines. Loads of policies are advocating for a contextual and situational approach, so that there is no one-size-fits-all kind of approach, but more context learning specific, and highlighting also the importance of traditional learning and human interaction and the skills that are brought forward by that. And so while we see a wide range of issues being addressed in these Gen AI policies, few mention groundbreaking curricular reforms. And so what we see, for example, if we dive deeper into the top 10 Asian universities, is that only one, which is the Hong Kong Polytech University, is really offering core curriculum courses in all of kind of the areas that are needed to succeed in the future. And these include like computer and digital literacy, AI tools in general, human intelligence and capacities, and human AI collaboration. So what we see happening is that we have a few core curriculum reforms and a lot of electives, but we have not seen yet that kind of revolution that everyone talks about that needs to happen within higher education. And concluding towards our discussion implication, we see really divergent policies between Chinese and other universities. So while many top Asian universities have adopted Gen AI policies, none within mainland China have adopted any. There seems to be clear disparity between theoretical recommendations and the skills that are supposedly needed for the future of work, and that we should be educating our students on versus the actual practice in top Asian universities, especially considering that many of the curricular reforms are either still outstanding or that there's no core curricula and it's more around electives, and that there's a lot more alignment to be happening between university policies and the evolving demands of the AI era. And so with that, I want to thank you for your attention and I look forward to your comments.